It's a good thing I have an editor in my book. I need one in real life. And in case any of you are wondering, reading from my books is my favorite part of this whole thing. The ladies were engrossed in a pleasant discussion of what was to be done with the rear garden and other estate improvements, when Rebecca shot from her perch upon the divan and strode towards the closed glass doors, a hand at her forehead. In the room opposite, Alexei had done the same. They each flung wide the doors at the precise instant. Highgate, the two chorused. All eyes were upon them. Again, Josephine pouted. Why always in my finest dresses? The guard gathered into Alexei's two carriages. Mr. Wentworth hardly raised an eyebrow as Alexei helped to ready the second team of horses, but Percy was inspired to murmur to Josephine, Heaven only knows what that family must think. They stood in the rear garden watching the conveyances being brought out. Josephine smiled. I dare say they're quite accustomed to seeing us on impromptu jaunts. Elijah now and then tickles their minds, so they don't ask too many questions. They know we're out of the ordinary, and I secretly think they like us for it. What's Highgate? The great graveyard, where London's most fashionable dead are interred. Quite a place to see. They set off, and soon the tips of obelisks and angels in the distance heralded Highgate's approach. Alexei's hand was pressed firmly over Percy's, and he stared ahead with fastidious concentration. A congregation of ghosts glowed just inside the fast-approaching gate. Alexei helped her down once the carriage pulled to a halt. Visiting hours had long since passed, but Michael held out his hand and the enormous locked gate swung wide. A ring of dead children coiled at the center, but there was an additional flank of unrest. Adult spirits lined the tall iron gates of Highgate, waiting, swaying, and speaking. For Percy, the only one who could hear their ghostly voices, there was no bugle call to arms. There was only a torrent of whispers. A dreadful sing-song accosted her ears. Lucy-Ducy wore a nice dress. Lucy-Ducy made a great mess. The children's voices filled the air. Percy felt her stomach roil, and she wondered if the head of a cavalry charge felt the same. You hear something, don't you? Alexei asked, as he heard nothing. They're all speaking, Alexei. The children in some sickening rhyme, and the others, well, the others think you've brought me as an offering, as one of them. But I don't know what they want. They want my attention. I've been away. These spectral delinquents require the firm hand of a master. And with that, he gestured to the guard, who darted forward among the grand monuments. Surrounded by graceful angels, carved mausoleums, and fine crosses, a bright full moon illuminating the scene, Percy couldn't help but be taken with the eerie light particular to a graveyard, the luminosity of an eternal crossroads. Her husband lifted a hand towards the children, who suddenly seemed as curious as the adults were to see Percy. Tendrils of blue flame snaked forth like ivy from his palm, and he became the great conductor of light. The transparent adult phantoms squealed or giggled or wailed like banshees, one by one realizing Percy was indeed living flesh. Before they could comment further, Alexei had wrapped glowing cords of light around wrists, waists, and necks, attaching them in fiery shackles. The cantus was begun. Alexei insisted Percy join in the circle. The guards' voices lifted, focusing their power and whipping a wind around them, coalescing an ancient force. Alexei cried out a word in the ancient guard tongue. It was a simple call to peace that Percy had heard once before. All the specters reacted. Some drifted on, some simply faded, some sank into the ground, perhaps till too attached to their rotting coil to abandon it fully. The hovering children watched the adult spirits around them fade, and they pouted, their fun cut short. They again took up their nursery rhyme. Lucy-Ducy wore a nice dress. Lucy-Ducy made a great mess. The guard's power rose again, the blue fire crackling forth from their circular conduit, reaching upwards in tall flames that tickled the feet of the bobbing young spirits, who sobered. All of their small eyes were angry. Beware the wrath, one little girl in a white nightgown called, wagging a finger at Alexei. He'll lock you all away, he will. The other children picked up the new taunt. Darkness will lock you all away. The girl in the nightgown floated close, getting louder. And she's coming. She is coming. She is coming. Long ago, Percy realized that the calls of the dead often meant nothing at all. She hoped that was so now. What is it? Alexei asked. Percy winced. She is coming, the girl screamed. Rebecca turned to Alexei in alarm. Remember little Emily, the luminous case, months prior. No, I don't think this one means prophecy, Alexei retorted. She means someone else. Percy shuddered. The guard turned back to the remaining ghosts. Children, I demand that all of you go to bed this instant, Rebecca cried, using her best headmistress's tone. Alexei followed the admonishment with a renewed burst of blue fire. The spirits screwed up their faces and descended, sinking again into the earth, beneath the small gravestones marked with lambs and flowers. Floating onward to where Percy did not know, the sight saddened her. Returning to the carriages, Rebecca addressed only Alexei, but made no effort to hide her anxious question from Percy, whom he instinctively kept locked by his side. Athens, Alexei. Alexei raised an eyebrow. Now? I don't mean to alarm you, Alexei, but what's happening on the grounds is so strange. Oughtn't you come? There are matters, Rebecca, dear, it's near midnight. Fresh phantasms can await the dawn. Indeed, said the headmistress, her mouth thinning. She straightened her shoulders and marched off. Percy watched her retreat. A few paces behind her was Michael, attempting to be noticed. Rebecca deigned to allow him to ride back in the same carriage, and they vanished into its interior. A thought occurred to Percy. You would have gone, wouldn't you? Before? What do you mean? Before our marriage. You would have gone to Athens. Rebecca seemed surprised, disappointed. I'm all right. If you should go, please don't hold back on my account. I'm taking you home, and that's final, he said, with a look in his eyes. We must dole out your supernatural excitement in pieces. I'll not subject you to more, no matter what may lie await in Athens. In the far corners of the gray whisper world, just as the children foretold, she was nearly complete. The groundskeeper hummed as he peered over the coffin lid. The shape of a female body lay in the coffin. His sweetie, snaky laugh. Not much could be said for her condition, seeing that she was entirely ashen, a headless body of congealed gray soot that registered tiny hitching breaths from a quivering sternum. He had catalogued her requisite parts and mostly put them back. There were a few pieces missing, to his dismay, and he wasn't sure she would come back entirely whole, or what the effect would be, but something still lived and stirred in those ashes, and it was angry. Her head was the last of the large jars to be uncorked. He lifted it gently, ash inevitably flaking off for him to collect and return. The fragile head made rattling, hissing sounds, its mask of an open mouth frozen in a moment of rage and defeat. He attempted to soothe it. The body trembled as he poised the head above the crumbling neck. That's it, my do-sa-do. Soon my pretty girl lives again. He set the head atop the neck and massaged the ash together. The body hitched and seized, ash flaking off, as a hideous growl sounded in the room, like a growing storm. The ashen body sat up, slamming flaking hands on the side of the coffin. Its open mouth roared, and the entire whisper world shuddered at the echo. Where is she? Thank you.